Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I have a really fun technique. This was super fun. It is not a new technique, but I have not done this in a long time and you get a 2-for-1 kind of deal without it being super obvious. So I am going to be working on a Kraft base card today. The ones I use you saw just on screen before, but I will put the links in the description box below. Now I really do love masking off a border. I really find it makes the card so much rather than just going straight to the edges. So I'm using some of the mint tape to go around and mask all of the edges of my first card that I am creating here today. Now I'm going to be using some Oxides. I am using some Seedless preserved and picked raspberry today, and these blend beautifully on Kraft cardstock. It is really hard to go wrong, so that is a really good option if you struggle with blending as well. Of course, it does change the color up a little bit and it kind of mutes it down a little bit as well. I am using some ink blending tools, but again, you can use brushes or whatever you usually use for ink blending. And you can definitely use as many colors as you want to. All you need to do is make sure that you are using a water reactive ink for this technique. And just because the Oxides kind of have that nice creaminess to them, this technique works really well with them on the Kraft cardstock. Now, here is one of my favorite sets. I know you've seen this lots of times, but I really love to get good value for money. So this is the Flower Picking Friends by Simon Hurley. This is a big 8x6 stamp set. It has great sentiments and really good images, which is so important to me, but I'm going to use it again and again and again, so I know that you'll get sick of it. But what I'm wanting to do is find an image that has just the outline. So these stamps are perfect for that. And all I'm going to be doing is stamping with water, and that's it. I have my second piece of cardstock off there over to the left, and that is just a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. At the moment, it is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I have my little spray bottle there, ready to go, and that just has plain water in it. I am going to bring down a couple of little pieces of paper towel because I am going to spray my stamp here. Now don't laugh, I don't have an acrylic block big enough for it. So just ignore that bit of flour hanging off the end there. I will spray it quite well with water and shake off any excess onto the paper towel, and then bring in my Kraft cardstock with the Oxides and then just pop it down gently. I don't want to push really hard because I don't want the water to smush everywhere. Leave it for about 3 to 4 seconds, then bring it up and then stamp it directly down onto my other piece of paper. Now just for ease of stamping here and planning, I'm just going to pop it in the exact same place on both cards, and then that way I know that everything will fit and I don't have to worry about planning where the flowers will go and things. So you can see that it makes a really kind of nice, gorgeous watercolor impression. I don't clean off my stamp or anything like that. I just add a little bit more water, stamp down again, just nice and gently, give it a few seconds to soak in, and then take it over to my other sheet of paper and pop it down. And remember that the bottom here is in pink and the top is in purple. So you will see the ombre color change with this stamping as well. And that will transfer onto my second piece of cardstock just the same. So this one is going to be more purple, so it's going to be ever so slightly darker when I stamp it down. But this is such an easy technique, and spoiler alert, I love the stamped off card more than I love my original one. So this technique is definitely a favorite of mine. I really do love that watercolor look, and I like it that the flowers are complete enough that there's not lots of pieces missing. So yeah, I really like it. Anyhow, I'm using the back end of a pen here. This happens to be a glaze pen, but I just wanted something that would create a little dot. Anything would work, a paintbrush, any pen, any pencil, anything that's not going to leave ink or anything on there. And I'm just dipping it in the water so I can get some nice little spots just to create some interest. Now, when I thought about this, I didn't think about transferring the ink over to the other card, although I perhaps could have. I just didn't think that it would pick up the ink as well as the stamp had. So what I ended up doing is bringing in those two colors that I use for blending and popping them down. Now here is where I realized that when I was stamping this down that the glaze pen actually has some writing on the bottom. So it gives this gorgeous little texture, and in a minute I'll show you the kind of writing. It actually has some words. You can't read them or anything, but it does add some really lovely little texture when I added my little circles onto this version. So there we go, and now I'm going to take off the outside. This feels like the reveal. I really love that you can see the Kraft cardstock around the outside, and now I am going to finish off both of these cards for you. It is important, I forgot to say, that when you stamp that first Kraft cardstock card base with the water, do not mop it up with a paper towel or anything, because you will smush it and smudge it. Just let the water dry however you take the stamp off, so don't be tempted. Now I'm going to finish off these cards and cut down the first one just a little bit. Again, remember it started as 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so I wanted to cut it down just a little bit. I love a good border, so I'm adding some anti-static powder bag first of all because I used inks on here. Then I'm going to add some Versamark sticky ink, and I'm just reusing the same piece of low tack tape. This is the mint tape, over and over again, and this will create a little border that I will use some gold embossing powder, and that will go along with my pinks and purples. Now I'm sorry about the lighting here. At the moment all of my kids are home. We have a long summer break here in New Zealand for 6 weeks over Christmas, so the kids are all home and I'm filming at all sorts of hours of the day just to try and get some videos out. So bear with me with the bad lighting here and there, and I will do my best to make it not quite so bad. But anyway, I'm going to melt all of the embossing powder that goes around the outside. And I had a few little sticky spots that I needed to brush off with a dry paintbrush where my little fingers had got some oils or some dampness and the embossing powder stuck to that. Here is how I'm going to finish this one off. I am using a little strip of vellum, and I'm doing this in my stamping platform, although you don't really need to at all. Making sure to add that anti-static powder bag, which is just so important when you're embossing. That's my number one tip when you are embossing, is to use some sort of anti-static agent. It just takes some of the stress away and embossing can be a little bit stressful at times. Again, with the stamp set, I'm using the sentiments from here because it has so many different ones that you can put together, and that's really important for me. I don't just want to use the same sentiment over and over again. This is a really clever stamp set where you can keep putting things, different sentiments together to make them read differently. But again, any sentiment in any stamp set that you have would work well for this, with a really nice outline is the one that you want for stamping with the water. Now you can see, again, I got my little fingers in there with the Versamark sticky ink. So you just use a dry paintbrush and swipe it off, and that will be good to go. Then again, I'm using the same gold embossing powder because I want to keep everything continuous. I want to not introduce any more colors. There's already enough colors and bits and pieces on my card. So when you are embossing on vellum, make sure that you move your heat gun around and don't leave it there for too long because we don't want to warp the vellum. And then I'll add a little bit of double-sided tape to the ends, which will go around my card. I also add some tiny little pieces there on the words in the center, just really little bits, and that stops the vellum from gaping at all in the center when it goes across your card front. Once I have my little sentiment stretched across the middle, I am going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of my card panel. And I'm doing my little trick as always with the 4 little tabs out the side and 1 sticky bit removed in the middle. I line it all up, then press the middle and then take out the 4 tabs. This helps me line it up perfectly every single time. And I love the shine that this gold creates on my card. It's a very simple card, but I love the ombre effect of the stamping. And then the gold just sets it off nicely. I'm going to add some Nuvo drops in the pale gold color, and that will just add a tiny little bit more of that gold here, there, and everywhere. And then only because I couldn't leave it alone, I have some of the Stickles in the diamond, which is basically just glittery, kind of clear glittery. And I'm just going to do those tiny little, I think there's stamens in the middle of the lily, just those little bits in the center there. So I'll pop a tiny wee dab on each one, and really you can only see it in person. It doesn't pick up on camera very well. But that is the first card finished. And I feel like this card just pulled together really nicely. The gold border around the outside with the gold sentiment, and it's gorgeous and shiny. I really like this card. I like how it ended up. Now for the second one, I'm going to keep it relatively simple and similar. So I have my sentiment that was still there from the first time I used the Versamark. This time I am just using the same Kraft cardstock to go and become my sentiment in the middle. I'm using my anti-static powder bag, the same Versamark sticky embossing ink, and then I will pop it over, and this way I'm able to check that I got a really good impression because it makes a really nice mark on the Kraft cardstock. I'm adding the same gold embossing powder. This one happens to be from Ranger, but any would work fine. And then I will melt that with my heat gun, and it just makes that really gorgeous gold shine. I do really like this color of gold from Ranger, but as I said, any will work fine at all. I do need to cut this down because the strip was a little bit too big. I wasn't sure how wide I needed it in the beginning. So I will just get out my little, this is a little Fiskars trimmer, but you could probably just do it with the scissors as well, some nice long bladed scissors. And then I'm going to kind of do some similar things with this one, just a little bit different. I felt like the center of the flowers there weren't as defined as they were on the stamped image. So I am going to actually add some anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to add in some dots with my pen here. Now this is an embossing pen. This one happens to be the Distress from Ranger one. It comes in a 2-pack, and it comes with a brush tip and a bullet tip pen, and this is the bullet tip. I'm just doing some nice little dots to help redefine the center, and I will use the same gold embossing powder that I used for the sentiment as well. And again, these are just the little touches which you don't have to do. You could definitely skip these if you wanted to, but again, that little extra bit of shine in the end is really worth it. And it is, again, a really simple card, but I wanted to keep these nice and simple. I was enjoying doing the technique, and that's what I wanted to kind of have be the focus. So you can see that gorgeous shine there from the center of the flowers. I'm popping the sentiment down nice and flat. I didn't use any foam tape for these, so they go through the mail really, really well. And then that is the second card. I did think about adding some little Nuvo drops here, there, and everywhere, but I really just like the simplicity of this. And sometimes that's okay too. You don't have to kind of keep complicating things. Card making doesn't have to be complicated, and I made these 2 cards today, and I had so much fun doing this technique. So I hope that you have enjoyed watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I will leave links down to everything in the description box below, but other than that, thank you so much for making it this far through this long video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye!